So for the sake of this, Ryan, I know you were looking to get a little bit more information about drawing on top of this plan. Would you like me to record this right now?
Yes, please.
Fantastic. So I guess before I start, so a little bit of context on what we were just describing. So when I uploaded this into my specific folder, I started an ArcSite on my website. I tapped on this 31 Spooner Street, and then I uploaded that PDF originally based on that 21 page. I had 21 pages. They all come in like this, where you'll just tap on them, you'll open it up, and it will be accessible right there. Now, once you tap on it, let me just click record.
This meeting is being recorded.
So what I'll do afterwards is I'll send you the recording of the conversation as well. That way you have it. But once you get to this point, you've uploaded it into the system. All you need to know is one specific dimension. Now, what I can do is recalibrate the drawing. When you open a net new drawing for the first time, it always prompts you and says, hey, make sure you calibrate this drawing. So if I knew the dimension from here to here, let's say, is 45 feet or 35 feet, now everything that I draw on top here to get the square footage would be to scale. I'm guessing based on the color codes and things like that, what you guys are looking for is to get the square footage and just the specific readings of these specific rooms, the restrooms, the cafe dining concrete, the high traffic carpet, and then the concrete. Is that correct?
Yeah, in this case, yes.
Okay. So I will go ahead and I'll trace over a couple of these. So basically we'll start with one of the complicated ones, similar to what we did on the last during the last call would be, find your specific product. We'll go in, we'll find a concrete example, and I will select that. Now, instead of picking an internal point, because you are reading it, there's a couple of different things that you can do. You can trace the entirety of this, drawing, which I'll show you that workflow in just a second, but it's just as easy to go in here and then use my polygon tool and trace it. And that's kind of what we were discussing on the last one, because it makes it very easy to use. So essentially what you'll do is you'll drag your finger here and start drawing out where it's going to go. Now, it doesn't have to be perfect the first time that you're going through it, just because there's a lot of different things that you can do. And as you zoom in, it gets a little bit easier to do as you're going through it. So as you can see, it's kind of snapping to each individual one of those little sections right here. And then you'll just essentially trace the outline of what we're looking at here. Once you hit OK, it saves the square footage that you are tracing right here. And it also gives you the ability that all of these little control points, all these little red dots that you're seeing are editable now. So sometimes what I always recommend is starting with a significant amount of these, just because you do have the flexibility to go in here and just adjust it as you're going through it. So you can see I'm kind of moving quickly. You don't have to be perfect with it.
Yeah, because you can go adjust it afterwards, right?
Exactly. So we're going to go in here. We're making all these little control points. We'll just quickly finish this out.
What's really nice about that is if you're just trying to even just get a rough number first.
Exactly.
That'd be pretty damn close.
Exactly, because you can get as detailed as zooming in to getting to right down to each individual corner that you have, and then get that square footage breakdown. So we'll finish this out, but as you can see, as I'm going in here, as I'm kind of cutting these individual corners, it's changing where it's covering. Yeah. So it might be covering like this bathroom, for example, but as I go in and drag my finger here, it's going to actually adjust that. So we'll go in here, we'll finish this out. Just got a little bit left. It is designed to hug to the PDF content. We do have different little things that you can turn off and on to make sure that you are hugging to different things on here to make it just really easy to use as you're kind of going through it. So I'll snap back to that PDF content and go back up. But as you can see, I am purposely trying to go as quickly as I can, so that way you can see the different things that you do have the ability to edit as you're going through it. That will make sure that we're snapped back. So right now I do have this, rough tracing of this building. And as you can see, it's relatively, attaching to each individual one of those lines. I do have a square footage breakdown. I've got about 1,900 square feet, 1,900 square feet based on what I have here. But now when I go back in, if I tap on it, as we were kind of discussing, you do have the ability to grab each one of those little control points and adjust it to make sure that you are getting it exactly where you would need it to go. So once you do that as well, oops, let me make sure we're going back down here. As you're doing that, if we go back into my takeoff and estimate, you can see that it is adjusting that right here based on what we're doing. So as you're moving around, as you're changing all those dimensions, oops, I actually moved it when I was doing it. So let me make sure that I did that. As you're doing that, you can specifically change each one of those little content, and it will adjust that total square footage in your bill of materials and your takeoff.
Can you see the square footage directly, or do you have to go to the other place to see it?
So when I was creating this and adding that on right there, I did remove the square footage, but if you can see, and I'll go in here real quick. So say we're doing this bathroom, for example, and I know that this is a perfect rectangle. So I'll give you an example of what I was kind of describing. So I've got, my rectangle here. We'll kind of get it as close as possible. Oops. Get it as close as possible to make sure that we are attaching to each one of those corners here. Make sure we're all lined up. We're good to go. So now what I can do, instead of tracing the entirety of what it is, all I need to do is find, let's find a, let's see if I have anything here. My lawn care. I will actually just pick an internal point now, and it's going to break down and calculate the square footage right on the canvas. And if you can see, you also can see the square footage based on what we have. So it will kind of match what we have in this section right here.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yep. So there's a lot that you can do. So whether you are tracing the entirety of it, and you do not need to do the whole thing. Say we're going to do this section, and I know that I want to break this apart into multiple sections, just because maybe I do want to make it easier on myself, because I know that this is essentially just a rectangle right here. I can do what I was just doing previously, and kind of make sure that we're covering all the necessary areas. Make it so that it snaps right into place here. Let me find the center. Instead of me tracing that, what I can do is go in, we'll find this concrete, we'll pick the internal point here. We can tell that that's 1,960 square feet. As I go in here now, and I make another one in this section, it's going to show me what the square footage for that section would be. So I'll just, let me actually go back in here and we'll find let's find a different one. We'll do the epoxy flooring. Let's remove this one. So if I pick that internal point, that one's 1,960 square feet. This one's 212 square feet, or 1,200 square feet. But if I go in here now, it's going to calculate that all together. So on the canvas, you can make it really easy for you to get those square footages by doing that. And you can just simply go in here and instead do this, where you go in and find your epoxy flooring.
To your question, when you export the information for that floor, right, or whatever, is it going to combine those or treat them as two separate entries?
It depends on how you want it set up. So if you did it the way that I just did it previously, it would combine those as two separate sections, but it would also calculate the total amount. What I have right here is, instead of me breaking those in two separate sections, I tapped both internal points right there. So on the canvas, it's showing me that that's 3,179 square feet. So if you do want them to be all calculated in one specific part, what I would suggest is outline it, tap the internal points for each one. So that way, when you go back in, it also gives you a breakdown. So if I go into my product detail, it'll break down, say I've got 3,179 for my square footage. But if in this area, and I'll give you a quick example. If we're just drawing a rectangle in this section, this one's 873, but if I go back into my take off an estimate now, it's going to add those together, but how it would appear on my bill of materials would be one section is 3,179 square feet. The other section is 874 because we did do those separately.
Let me ask you one other question. Do you have any ability of putting tags on those? Because sometimes
Yep.
we're putting suite numbers.
Yep. So what you can do is we can build out different factors in here. So for example, I have it right now set up for that concrete resurfacing as a base price, a exposed, aggregated, or colored, and then there's ultimate data that you can fill in. So what we can do is have it so that way the collected data could be the location. So you can type in a location here. So that way it's calculating the square footage. And then on the export, it's going to show the square footage for, say the bathroom, the restrooms, the cafeteria floor, all that kind of stuff would be calculated based on and tying it to whatever you fill in right here.
Yeah, because very often, and in our site surveys, we'll do that as well. We'll put conference room names if they're on the floor plan or if we're walking that, right? Because we may get special work in that conference room. We want to know that conference room is 1,400 square feet versus having to go back and look at the floor plan and try to figure out which one it is.
Exactly.
Now, we're not going to be doing pricing through the tool because our pricing process is much more complex.
Yep.
What do you do in that case? Can you hide those bits or?
Yeah, you don't, all of this can be custom for you guys, so you don't have to include any pricing information. A lot of our customers who are doing a lot of the similar workflow that you are just, incorporating the information that they're collecting as far as the square footage, the data, but they're not including necessarily a price.
Gotcha. Okay, that's perfect.
Fantastic. Any other questions about this workflow?
No, I did have one actually. When you were doing the two separate boxes?
Yeah.
Is there a way to combine those?
As far as like what we have in these specific sections?
Like where it would convert it to a polygon?
So what we do instead would be, oops, let me go back over here. So what you can do instead would be, let me actually remove this. So if you went in here and say you were, delete that. Instead of doing it with a rectangle, what we would suggest would be doing it with a line. So I'll quickly trace this. Oops, let me trace this. You can duplicate this line, snap that right into place. Say we do have a line that's coming right down in the center here, coming back down, snapping back over here, so on and so forth. What we can do is we do have a section where if you didn't want to draw this line, you can actually just delete it, or what you can do is you can trim that line and it would, continue this line all the way through and continue where it's connected right here, but it obviously deletes that line right there.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Okay. That would be a nice feature though, if you could merge them somehow.
Well, so you can do it where, like if we have that section and we're calculating the square footage, if I tap one internal point, oops, let me switch that back over here. If I tap one internal point, you can see that that's 1852. But if I tap another one, it's going to now add that onto the total square footage.
Oh, I see.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, that would be okay. Because I guess if the output that we're looking at is going to combine them anyway on that floor, don't where that becomes a problem is, if it always just brought all the high traffic stuff together, it'd be totally fine because they're going to have the same color. So even if they are rectangles and they're separate, it doesn't matter, right?
Right. Yeah, and that's one of the things that we outline as a part of the onboarding process is making sure that, whatever your workflow is, there's a lot of different ways that we can accomplish it. So we do our best to kind of, arm you with the resources you need as far as the best practices go.
Yeah, it looks pretty damn simple.
Perfect. So